Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Shalom. I'm David Mencer, Israeli government spokesman. Today is Monday, the 3rd of June, day 241 of the October 7th war, when the Hamas army of terror invaded our border. Israel's conditions for ending the war have not changed. The destruction of Hamas's military and governing capabilities, the freeing of all 124 hostages, and ensuring that Gaza no longer poses a threat to Israel. All of our objectives are within reach. Israel will not compromise on any of them. As we clarified over the weekend, the notion that Israel will agree to a permanent ceasefire before these conditions are fulfilled is a non-starter. It's not an option. As the Prime Minister said just in the last couple of hours to the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Security Committee, he said, quote, "The outline that President Biden presented is partial. The war will be stopped for the purpose of returning hostages, and then we will proceed with further discussions. There are other details which the US president did not present to the public," end quote. So we'll start today with the terribly sad news of IDF casualties. Since the start of the war, IDF fatalities have unfortunately risen to 644. Sergeant First Class Adar Gabriel was aged 24 from Caesarea. He fell in battle in northern Gaza. He leaves behind his parents, a brother and 3 sisters, as well as his partner. In a story replicated many, many times across this country, he was called up for reserve duty at the start of the war. He continued to serve with only a 1-month refresher break. And a month ago, he was drafted again. When his parents expressed concern, he simply told them that his friends were serving and how could he possibly stay home. Sergeant Johannatan Elias was just 20 from Jerusalem. He fell in battle in southern Gaza. He leaves behind his parents and 2 sisters. There are no words of mine that can assuage the pain of their parents and their families. We embrace them and their dear families who have lost their precious heroes, sons and daughters in this war for our very existence. The price of war is heavy, very heavy indeed, and painful. Each casualty is a world unto itself. May their memories be a blessing forever. On the hostages, the government and the people of Israel are united in our desire to return the hostages as soon as possible. We're all working to achieve this goal. The Prime Minister has authorized the negotiating team to present a proposal to that end, which would enable Israel to continue the war until all its objectives are achieved, including the destruction of Hamas's military and governing capabilities. The actual proposal put forward by Israel includes the conditional transition from one phase to the next and allows Israel to uphold these principles. On the hostages, I can confirm that Israel's army released just this morning that Dolev Yehud, who was 35, was initially thought to have been taken hostage by Hamas terrorists on October 7th, has unfortunately been declared dead after his body was identified in Israel. May his memory be a blessing. It's a testament to the scale and brutality of that atrocity and of so many other atrocities of that day. Dolev Yehud was from Kibbutz Nir Oz on the Gaza border. Dolev was a hero. He was a volunteer medic with Magen David Adar and United Hatzalah, Israel's ambulance services. On the morning of October 7th, he left his house to save lives on the kibbutz amid the Hamas onslaught before being killed. His daughter Dor was born just 4 days later. Initially, Dolev was believed to have been abducted, but with no signs of life, authorities reevaluated unidentified remains found on the kibbutz from the onslaught. Victims of the Hamas massacres had their bodies burnt, mutilated beyond recognition, making identification very difficult. But new scientific identification tests, paired with information on where the remains were found, confirmed that the previously unidentified body belonging to Yehud, his sister Arbel, was also kidnapped and is still being held in Gaza, along with her boyfriend Ariel Cunio. Cunio's brother David, his wife Sharon, and their 3-year-old twins, along with Sharon's sister Danielle, and her 5-year-old were also kidnapped. A total of 124 hostages remain in Hamas captivity for 8 months now. Time has already run out for 39 of them. Their ongoing plight is the number one humanitarian issue throughout this war. Now, you know, for Israel, this is a 7-front war. We are being attacked from Yemen, from Judea and Samaria and the West Bank, from Iran, from Iraq, from Syria, from Hezbollah in Lebanon, of course, from Hamas in Gaza. So I want to shift your attention to those other fronts from which Israel finds itself under constant attacks by these Iranian proxies. Earlier today, the IDF successfully intercepted a surface-to-surface missile that was fired from the direction of the Red Sea towards Israel. In the north, sirens have been going off almost every hour, warning of Hezbollah rockets and mortars, suicide drones from Lebanon's territory. Just yesterday, Sunday, dozens of projectiles were fired towards Margaliot and Katzrin in the Golan Heights. Fires broke out. The footage is absolutely horrific. Nearly 2,500 acres were burnt, according to Israel's Nature and Parks Authority. In Israel's largest city in the north, Kiryat Shmona, 2 were injured. A Hezbollah drone fell in Nahariya, a city of 66,000 people who rushed to bomb shelters multiple times over the weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a sustainable reality. Israel's northern residents, tens of thousands of them, evacuated, will not live under such a threat. The Israeli government is committed to ensure their security and their return to their homes. It's up to Hezbollah to decide if this can be accomplished by diplomatic means or by force. This country will be defended. We are defending this country. No one should be surprised by our response. As for Israel's humanitarian efforts to alleviate Palestinian suffering as a result of Hamas's decision to wage war against us and their sick methods of war, since the beginning of the war, 31,000 trucks delivering more than 600,000 tons of humanitarian aid have entered Gaza. Over the last week alone, 1,858 trucks entered via the Kerem Shalom and Erez West crossings. This includes 312 flour trucks by the World Food Programme and 13 tankers carrying over 500,000 litres of fuel. Just yesterday, a mere 12 trucks of aid were picked up on the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom by UN bodies. Only 12 trucks were picked up. On humanitarian aid, I have not seen any outlet besides those here in Israel that have reported that 650 aid trucks are currently waiting on the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom. 650 aid trucks are currently waiting on the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom for pickup. You know, since the beginning of this year, 88% of all coordination requests have been approved. Today, as usual, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., the IDF paused operations in parts of Khan Yunis to enable the movement of humanitarian aid. So we are continuing to expand our efforts to facilitate humanitarian aid into Gaza. So that's the end of our briefing today. I will now take your questions, which you should put in the chat with your news outlet. I'll be doing the questions today. First question from Joel Pollack at Breitbart News. Does Israel believe that President Joe Biden deliberately misled the world when he claimed 4 times that the hostage deal was Israel's proposal? Thank you very much, Joel. That's a question, I imagine, for the White House rather than for me. We've made the Prime Minister's comments quite clear in response to the President's speech. Secondly, Israeli officials have said that they believe arson was responsible for a fire in Jerusalem's Valley of the Cross. Was there a political motive, and was this a form of fire terror attack Israel has seen in previous years? Thank you, Joel, for that question. I've seen those reports of the fire in Jerusalem, but I haven't got any more details to add. The Israeli police will probably have more details to give you. Next question from Dan Williams of Reuters. What's Israel's position on the Gaza plan advanced by President Biden? Thank you very much for that question, Dan. We've made clear our position. The Prime Minister made some comments which I alluded to, which I quoted in my introduction here today, just a couple of hours ago in front of the Foreign Affairs and Security Committee. He said, and I quote, "The outline that President Biden presented is partial. The war will be stopped for the purpose of returning hostages, and then we will proceed with further discussions." There are other details that the US President did not present to the public. So I hope that answers your question. Dan, you're going to have another question here. How many smuggling tunnels from Egypt has Israel located in Rafah and elsewhere in southern Gaza? Thank you for that question, Dan. The answer I have seen is around 50 tunnels have been identified in southern Gaza and in Rafah. Of course, they are a lifeline. They are a lifeline to Hamas because they allow them to smuggle in all of their deadly materials, both for creating and building deadly weapons, lethal weapons to use against us in their dastardly terrorist means, but also another means of supply from Egypt into Israel. We're shutting down those tunnels. It's absolutely crucial that we shut down those tunnels because we need to limit the supply of Hamas. And we, of course, in our effort to destroy Hamas, they will be strangled in terms of supplies, but also to ensure that they never, ever pose a threat to Israel again. Next question from David Clement from the News Forum. Palestinian health authorities are claiming that IDF airstrikes in refugee camps killed 11. Can the Prime Minister's office provide any clarification on the location of those airstrikes and who the targets were? Thank you very much for that question, David Clement from the News Forum. So as we made clear last week and we make clear every single day, Palestinian health authorities are an arm of Hamas. Hamas is a deadly terrorist organization that performed the October 7th massacre and have no compunction whatsoever in inflating figures and telling barefaced lies. Of course, Israel would never, ever target any humanitarian area. That was the purpose of us establishing these humanitarian safer zones, so that non-connected civilians can move to them to keep themselves out of harm's way. That's precisely why we bought the tents, that we made sure that we flooded the area with water, with humanitarian aid, with medical supplies. That's why we let civilians know through leaflets, millions of them, through text messages, through phone calls, in Arabic, on the media, on the internet, to move away from the zones where allow us to get to the last 4 battalions of Hamas in Rafah. We're going to destroy this terrorist organization, and Israelis are full square behind the government when they refuse to live next to this terrorist organization. We will not allow this terrorist organization to remain in control of Rafah or anywhere in Gaza because they will simply regroup and fire at us again before working up enough to be able to perform October the 7th again and again and again and again. It's not enough for us Israelis to think that, well, they are deterred. They're not deterred. They're genocidal, murderous Jew haters who would rather have their own people die with the option of to prefer to kill Jews. We know that's what they are. They've already shown that's what they are. They say that's what they are. When genocidal murderers say that they wish to kill Jews, we here in Israel believe them. Maybe other people don't. They think they don't mean it. We actually believe they do mean it. When they say these things, they mean it, and we're here to stop them. Next question from David Clement at the News Forum. UNRWA is claiming that their independent review found that Israel provided no evidence to support the terrorist organization label. Can you summarize the evidence that has been provided? David, thank you for that question about UNRWA. I mean, the rap sheet against UNRWA is as long as your arm. Where do I begin? UNRWA members actually took part in the October 7th massacre. UNRWA members actually took hostages on the October the 7th. UNRWA members are members of Hamas, actively members of Hamas. The Hamas server farm was built underneath the UNRWA headquarters in Gaza, with cables running between the two operations to provide electricity. UNRWA electricity provided to Hamas. Hundreds of UNRWA employees are members of Hamas. It's not simply a matter of a few bad apples. It's a whole rotten orchard. That organization simply perpetuates this conflict. I had the opportunity to look at UNRWA's website, where they attempted to make a comprehensive debunking of all these accusations, none of whom, not one of whom, were convincing. They say that Israel's never provided them with any evidence of any people, any evidence of their cooperation with UNRWA. It's just simply defies belief. Look, UNRWA is part of the problem. They perpetuate this conflict. They allow the myth of the Palestinians eventually displacing Israel in Haifa, in Jaffa, and other cities of this country. None of these things are going to happen. All of us want peace here. Israel will always, first and foremost, put out its hand in peace, but UNRWA is part of the problem. Now, Philip Lazzarini, of course, sits in Geneva, and I saw as well that he was meeting terrorist organizations in Beirut over the weekend. What an outrage. What an absolute outrage. So the evidence against UNRWA is comprehensive, it's undeniable, and this organization is not only inefficient, completely inefficient, a useless organization, it actually makes the situation a lot worse. Next question from Fred Ager from Interplanetary Television. The 61-year-old climate scientist and former Mexico City Mayor Claudia Sheinbaum is the first woman elected as president of Mexico in 200 years, and the first person of Jewish background in an overwhelmingly Catholic country to be elected. Any official wishes from the State of Israel to Mexico's president-elect Claudia Sheinbaum in a country devastated by cartel violence. Thank you very much for that question, Fred. We, of course, the people of Israel and the government of Israel, of course, express our congratulations on a successful election of the new president of Mexico, and we look forward to continuing the long history of Mexico and Israel good relations. We have seen, unfortunately, the terrible firebombing of the embassy, Israeli embassy in Mexico, a shocking development. I happen to have spoken to some Mexican Jews who are in Israel at the moment volunteering to support this country through some of the darkest days it's seen in the last 76 years, who were absolutely devastated by the racist violence and the attack on the Israeli embassy in Mexico. So for a further comment, I'm sure the Foreign Ministry will give a more comprehensive response to that election. Next question from Hannah Julian at the Jewish Press. Firstly, was the deal described by President Biden a US-created deal or an Israeli proposal? Thank you very much, Hannah. I think I've dealt with that question quite a few times already, certainly right in the beginning of my comments, so please go ahead and play the tape. But we've made our position quite clear. Secondly, there was a meeting of the War Cabinet last night. What decisions were made, if any? Thank you for that question, Hannah. I haven't seen any output from that meeting in terms of messages to the public that we want released. As soon as there is something ready to be released, we will share it with the public in the usual way. Number three, there were fires burning across northern Israel due to the ongoing and pretty much constant Hezbollah attacks. How is Israel intending to respond to the escalating attacks from Lebanon? Thank you very much for that question, Hannah. So yes, indeed, a very, very difficult weekend in the north of Israel. And in my comments today, I made clear about Israel's response. There's been a big increase in the number of attacks from Hezbollah and the other of Hezbollah's Iranian proxies. And I made clear the Israeli government response. If Hezbollah wish this to be a military encounter, a more face-to-face military encounter, then that will happen. If they wish for a diplomatic resolution to this issue, of course, United Nations Resolution 1701 calls for Hezbollah to be pushed right back behind the Litani River, something that's never been adhered to. Then if they want a military confrontation, then they will have it. If they want a diplomatic resolution, then they will have it too. The reality which is currently happening in Israel's north for our northern residents, tens of thousands of which have been evacuated, they cannot live under this sustained level of bombardment and threat. So all of us here in the Israeli government and the people here in Israel are completely committed to ensure that security and the return for them to have a secure and be able to return to their homes. As I mentioned, it's up to Hezbollah to decide whether this can be accomplished diplomatically or by means of force. This country will be defended. Hezbollah know that. We are defending this country, and no one should be surprised by our response. Question from Jim Williams at Zenger International News. Daily briefings often begin with somber statistics of soldiers who have sacrificed their lives for the state of Israel. Based on current reports, would it be accurate to state that the majority of these valiant soldiers who have been killed are indeed under the age of 30? Thank you very much for that question, Jim. I couldn't answer that question with any degree of accuracy right now, but certainly my experience that has been the case. Having to have the somber task of reading out the names of these soldiers who have paid the ultimate price for defending this country. You know, for thousands of years, this country, the Jewish people, were at the whim of any dictator or any force, anti-Semitic force, of which there have been so many throughout the ages. Anti-Semitism is, of course, the world's oldest hatred. For so often we have been unable to counter the threat of Jew hatred. And that's what it is. It is Jew hatred. Let's make no bones about it. This is not a territorial dispute, as we never tire of saying. If it was a territorial dispute, it would have been solved many, many times, because Israel has made many, many generous offers, many painful offers of painful compromise to resolve the issue with the Palestinians. But time and again, it is declined. No is the answer we get again and again and again. And why is that? It's because, unfortunately, the Palestinian leadership are not interested in peace with this country. They are interested in replacing this country. Now, we cannot let that happen. There is only one Jewish state in the entire world, and the soldiers that have laid down their lives and the families that have supported them and the people here in Israel that accompany them, they've made the ultimate sacrifice, but none of their sacrifice will have been in vain, because we will destroy this terrorist organization, and we will go back to making peaceful relations with all the countries in our region. No one should give us any lessons here in Israel about making peace. We've been extremely successful at it, actually. When you look at peace with Jordan, Egypt, the Abraham Accord countries, Bahrain, Morocco, United Arab Emirates, Sudan, and other countries which are on the verge of making peace with us. You know, in the Arab world, peace is made with the strong, not with the weak. The world is watching what happens. These soldiers have made the ultimate price, but they've made the price to defend this country. The reason that our soldiers continue to turn up for duty day after day after day, our young people, our best and bravest and boldest, with all their lives in front of them, the reason that they continue to turn up to defend their country, to use up their precious time, their most valuable years of their life to defend this country, is because there is only one Jewish state, and this country will be defended. Whether the world outside likes it or not, I know, in history and in public relations terms, people seem to like dead Jews. They like to feel sorry. It's much easier to feel sorry for Jews that have been, the victims of pogroms. Well, we're not looking for sympathy anymore. We're looking for victory. We are going to defeat this terrorist army, and the resolve of this country is strong. The sacrifice that our soldiers are making every single day is unrelenting. Our will is stronger. Good is stronger than evil, and we will defeat this terrorist force. Next, question from Jody Cohen of WION in India. What are the gaps Prime Minister Netanyahu was referring to between Israel's hostage truce and the terms presented by President Biden? Thank you very much for that question, Jody. I made clear what the Prime Minister had said just a couple of hours ago in the Knesset. There is a sequential element which is very, very important. Certain things need to happen before the next thing happens. But one thing I can tell you for sure, that this country will not accept Hamas remaining in control of Gaza after this war. It is not enough to simply say that Hamas have been depleted in their strength. Yes, we know that Hamas has been depleted in their strength. We have done the job, but they are not defeated yet. They are not defeated yet. We are going for the final 4 battalions of Hamas. They will be defeated, and they will no longer be able to control any part of Gaza. We want ordinary Gazans to take control. We want friendly nations in this region to support us in that work. We want Gaza to be rebuilt the following day. And we won't take any lessons about the day after the conflict when you look at the day after so many other conflicts in this region, which have been nothing short of not good. So with that, I think that was the final question. And I'm going to say thank you for joining us. Please stay safe and join us for the next briefing. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Johannatan signing off.